The current world feels like an unprecedented upheaval in a century, with various situations intertwined and the landscape extremely complex. Ukraine has launched large-scale drone attacks on Moscow, severely affecting some of the city's airports. In response, Russia has intensified its bombing of Ukraine, using missiles such as the Kinzhal to strike key Ukrainian targets while deploying a large number of drones for bombardment. Russian vanguard forces have advanced to the outskirts of Krasnoye Selo, encircling over 10,000 Ukrainian defenders in Konstantinovka on 3 sides within an area of approximately 16 square kilometers. Israel continues its bombing campaigns in Syria, while the forces deployed by Jilani and Syrian tribal armed groups persist in their resistance. The Houthi armed forces have launched targeted counterattacks against Israel and condemned Arab and Islamic countries for their inaction in the face of Palestinian suffering. Trump, expressing dissatisfaction with Israel's bombing of Syria, has meanwhile threatened to bomb Iran again. It's truly chaotic. Flames of war are raging across 3 continents, and 4 major crises are intertwined. Russia's patience has been exhausted. A new round of negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv is scheduled to take place from July 24 to 25, but just as the talks are about to begin, Ukraine launched another large-scale attack on Russia. Ukrainian drone strikes paralyzed parts of Moscow's airports, with multiple flights canceled or delayed, leaving thousands of passengers queuing or sleeping on airport floors. In response to Ukraine's drone attacks, Russia struck back. In the early hours of July 20 to 21, 426 Russian drones and 24 missiles swarmed toward multiple Ukrainian cities like locusts, a move marking the most intense airstrike by Russian forces in nearly a week. The capital Kyiv endured what Zelensky described as a hellish 5-hour continuous bombardment. Russia deployed a variety of weapons into battle, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, Kh-101 cruise missiles, Iskander ballistic missiles, and Garand-2 long-range suicide drones. Key targets destroyed included Kyiv's Artyom Missile Design Bureau, a command center in Ukraine's western Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast, Zelyony Air Base, drone warehouses, Ivano-Frankivsk Air Base, and a secret Ukrainian military arsenal known as Project 515. Such a large-scale attack by Russian forces clearly signals the start of a general offensive. On critical fronts such as Sumy and Kupiansk, Russia has amassed 110,000 elite troops, with ace units like the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade and the 83rd Airborne Brigade all deployed. Between July 18 and 19, Russian forces reached a peak of 355 drones launched in a single day. Russia's stance is clear: it will actively participate in negotiations but will never make concessions on principled issues. Ukraine's shift to targeting airports and railway networks essentially aims to drag the war into a war of attrition, which also suggests that the Russia-Ukraine conflict will hardly end smoothly. Israel's bombing of Syria has disrupted the U.S. plan to lay out its strategy in the Middle East, triggering serious dissatisfaction from the White House. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed on the 21st local time that Israel's bombing of Syria last week caught U.S. President Trump off guard. Trump expressed dissatisfaction and demanded that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reverse the situation. Although Israel is displeased, Trump still maintains a tough stance on the Iran issue. On July 21 local time, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai stated at a regular press conference that Iran will hold trilateral talks with China and Russia on the Iranian nuclear issue. This indicates that in the face of enormous pressure from the U.S., Europe, and Israel, Iran has chosen to seek reasonable support from China and Russia. To break free from isolation, Iran can only opt for cooperation with China and Russia. After all, only a few countries like China and Russia can uphold justice for it. Amid such chaos, Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin recently paid a working visit to the Far East region. During the visit, he inspected the Kani-Kurgan highway port on the Sino-Russian border. Looking at the prosperous scene in China across the border, he issued a strict order to local government officials, emphasizing that the permanent highway port on the Russian side of the Kani-Kurgan port must be completed as soon as possible. In his own words, this is a key facility in the Far East logistics network. It will effectively increase the transportation volume of the Heilongjiang Bridge and must be completed by the end of this year to avoid losing the current momentum of development. It is evident that Russia is particularly eager to quickly integrate into China's development system, deepen development cooperation with China, and enhance Russia's economic development level. the Russia-Ukraine battlefield, U.S. Iran confrontation, and China-Russia economic cooperation, these three seemingly independent fronts actually form an interconnected global geopolitical chessboard. As Russian tanks advance across the Donbass plains, as B-2 bombers patrol the skies over the Persian Gulf, and as container ships cut through the Arctic Ocean's sea ice, the world is witnessing not just a military confrontation, an energy game, or a new trade route, but the collapse of an old order and the arduous birth of a new balance.